I just applied to York Region District School Board. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to Teacher's Place. My name is Eric Lobach, and like I said in the beginning of the video, I just applied to York Region District School Board, or YRDSB. For those of you who don't know what that is a district school board in Ontario. That's one of the school boards. You have Peel, you have York Region, you have the Toronto School Board, Catholic School Board. You have so many different kinds of school boards in Ontario. Just like any other province or any other state you would find, you definitely have districts for your school boards. I applied to York Region District School Board. I applied to the French side of the YRDSB. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the process that I went through when applying to YRDSB. Now, full disclosure, I am not done going through the process. I made it through the first set of interviews. Now I'm on the second stage of interview. The first stage was actually my language assessment. Because I am French certified, I have to go through a French language assessment so that I can be certified to teach French in York Region. Now, again, caveat to this, not everyone has to go through this. It's completely dependent on whether your interviewer wants you to go through with this, or if you are in a district that requires French teachers right away, or some kind of teachers right away, they might skip this process completely. I have a friend that skipped the process entirely when she went through the process of going through her district. She didn't go through YRDSB, she went through a different district. But again, it's completely up to your district. It's not really your choice to go through it if you are teaching French. Because I'm not done with the second half of my interview, there will be a second part to this video discussing what I went through for my second half. That's going to be about my teaching practices, so how your programs are going to look like math and literacy, how you might handle bullying in your classroom, how do you plan as well, so things like that. But this was just French language assessment, and I'm going to tell you what I went through. Full disclosure, I cannot tell you exactly what I went through though. I am under contract saying that I cannot talk about exactly what I went through in the interview, but there is a general broad understanding of what you would go through when you are being assessed in a language. And I want to talk to you about the things that you should expect if you are being assessed for your competency in speaking, writing, or understanding a language. So, like I said, I'm a French teacher. I have a French specialist from the University of Toronto, as well as my teaching degree is from OISE, that's the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, something along those lines. And because of this, it qualifies me to teach French. I also have my bilingual diplomacy from high school, and I have FSL, which is French as a second language. You need to have your FSL to teach French in Ontario, from my understanding. And if you don't know what an FSL is or how to get it, it's basically extra qualifications course that you would have to take in Ontario to teach French. Now, some provinces, and I'm sure some states and countries would not require you to have this, but Ontario specifically requires you to have this. Not entirely sure why. Maybe there was some issues in the past with French teachers not really being able to speak French or comprehend French, but still being hired, and maybe they've forced people to take that course just to prove that they have French competency in the first place before even going for the interview. Those are my credentials for speaking in French. So I began my interview just a few days ago. I went through. Now, there are a few levels that you can be assessed on for your French, and what I mean by that is after you finish your exam, your French assessment with your interviewer, they will email you a day or two, a week or two later, telling you either that you passed or you failed, and if you passed, they will tell you exactly what category you could teach in French. Now, there's a few different categories you could teach in Ontario. There's Immersion, which is the highest. There is Core French. There is Extended French as well. And I might be missing one, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, I managed to actually qualify for the French Immersion program, so I'm very happy about that. What that means is I could teach essentially anything from French Immersion all the way down to Core French. And if I need to, I can teach English courses as well. I am an elementary school teacher, so as an elementary school teacher, you basically teach everything. So let's get into it. What I did for my interview. So the first thing is the interview was 100% in French. There was not a single word spoken in English. Now, I'm very fluent in French and I have very good comprehension. I have very, very bad writing ability and I have decent speaking ability. So the first thing was 100% French, no English. When she introduced herself, the interview was honestly really smooth, really simple. There was no curveballs or anything like that. I was expecting entirely what she was about to present to me. And in fact, York Region, just like most districts, sends out an email detailing you exactly what you're going to go through. And it wouldn't be any different for even if you were taking a French test anywhere. You know, you'd be tested on this stuff no matter what. So the first thing you're going to be tested on, at least in my case, was a grammar test. Now, this grammar test was multiple choice. The reason being is we're all kind of stuck inside right now, and it's because of COVID-19, as you know. So it was a virtual meeting, it was a virtual interview, so we were on webcams, and the entire time when we were talking, she gave me ample time to finish all of my grammar tests. No issues there. In fact, the interview went a little bit over time because I was taking a little bit of time being careful with my answers. So the first thing is a simple grammar test. Now, obviously, it's not going to be the same when you're doing a face-to-face grammar test as you are in a virtual grammar test. She sent it to me on a Google Forms doc. So I went through the grammar test. It's nothing that you shouldn't be surprised about when you're a French teacher teaching grammar. Again, if you know your French rules, if you know your French grammar, you should have no problem with that. The second thing that you're going to be tested on is obviously your comprehension. Comprehension is really important because you are forced to speak to students all day and you are forced to speak to your interviewer as well. And if you're not understanding what the students are saying and if you're not understanding what the interviewer is saying, chances are you're going to be a really bad French teacher. My French comprehension was pretty good in high school and in elementary school and even in university. I do struggle with some of the literary tools that you find in reading, but I make up for it in my understanding of the overall language. So it wasn't anything too difficult. Again, it's a comprehension test. You have a text that you're meant to read in French and then answer some questions. No curveballs, no nothing like that. The third thing that you're going to be tested on is grammar again? What? So this time, instead of getting a multiple choice test, I was given a dictée. Now, this is, if you're a French student, or even if you're an English student, you know the dread that a dictée brings. You have to memorize words and you have to know exactly how they're spelled, and then you write out your list, you know, number 1, number 2, number 3, all the way down, however many you have to memorize. This is a little bit different. Instead of words, I was given sentences, and from the sentence, I had to spell out exactly how the words were meant to be spelled out, including any sort of comma, any sort of punctuation, or anything like that. It was only three sentences, but she was repeating it to me constantly. So you get 3 repetitions, and after you finish with the first one, she moves on to the second one, 3 repetitions, and then finally the last one. And at the end, I had to take a photo and send it to her email address. So that's how they were evaluating me during COVID. Now, obviously, it's going to be different. You're just going to hand in that piece of paper as soon as you finish to your interviewer if you are actually physically being interviewed. Next step is going to be a oral test as well. So your competence has been tested on your grammar abilities, your competence has been tested on your comprehension abilities, and then finally it's going to be an oral exam. Now, the oral exam, there's 2 components to it. From my understanding, this doesn't change as long as you're going through the actual interview process in French. So one is just holding a conversation with your interviewer. We talked about simple things, like we talked about how I used to work in China and I used to work in the UK, and we talked about, you know, how my travel was affected when I was in China during the COVID pandemic that happened, and different things that I found that were interesting in the UK system versus the Canadian system for teaching. So for the final portion, you are given a monologue. You are given a topic and you have 5 minutes to write some notes down on a piece of paper, and you have to present your monologue to your interviewer. Now, it's usually a broad topic that you can choose between a few different points, and it's honestly really, that's the easiest part. The oral part is the easiest part, talking to the person, or talking at the person in this case for the monologue. My monologue was along the lines of something to do with electronics, for example. So I had to talk about if, I believe that electronics should be used in class or shouldn't be used in class, or if students should be playing video games when they get home, or if that causes violence, anything like that. It could be a general broad topic. That's the easiest part of the interview, I would say. Now, like I said before, I actually made it through the process. I got through and made it to the immersion section. So I am at the highest level, quote unquote, for my French language assessment. Now, this obviously is really good. I'm happy for myself. I didn't even expect myself to get that far because, again, I hadn't practiced French in about 3 years. So first year of OISE, no French. When I taught in the UK, no French. And when I taught in China, definitely no French. So I was very happy to see that my French competency hadn't gone down as significantly as I thought. The second portion of the interview, which I'm scheduled for May 26th, so after May 26th, I will make a second video discussing what I went through for that interview as well. I hope this video answered a few of your questions, and if you have any more questions about education or for the French process, feel free to leave a comment down below, and please like this video. Have a great day, and hope everyone's safe. Bye-bye.